Hello and welcome to Agency Office Hours for October 2023. I'm Agency Advisor Karl Sakas, and we'll be answering questions about helping you grow your agency more smoothly this month, this year, and beyond. Here's a preview of the questions that I will be answering today. First up, John in Florida has a question about business development, specifically how to leverage your past experience in your future biz dev efforts. Next, Martin in Vienna, Austria has a question about positioning, about how inbound agencies can stand out today. Then I'll share about a new way to get my one-on-one help, my new phase 1 service. Next, Zach in Nebraska has a question about pivoting on services. As you add new services, what do you do about your legacy clients who may not be using those new services? And finally, last but not least, Stephen in Alabama has a question about work-life balance, specifically if as an agency leader, you're providing one-on-one services to clients while also running the business. How do you create a work less, earn more situation if that's what you are doing? If I didn't mention your question, would love to answer it in a future call. If I did mention your question, be ready to unmute yourself and be on video when it's time for your question. As a reminder, this is recorded, so don't share anything out loud that you don't want to potentially become public later. And if you're watching this live, you'll get the recording within 24 hours. And if you're watching the recording already, well, you have got it now. All right. Well, our first question today from John is about business development. John, if you want to come on video and unmute yourself. Welcome to Agency Office Hours.
Thank you, Carl.
So to paraphrase, here's the question you asked, and then I'd love to hear a bit more about it, elaborate a bit, and then we'll dig in on answering it. And by the way, for everyone who's listening, who's here with us live, if you have some tips or suggestions, feel free to share those in chat as we go. This is for this particular segment or any of the segments. So, John, you mentioned, to paraphrase, how can we leverage our success in past jobs or past client work as we grow our agency? If you could, please elaborate a bit.
Yeah, so I work on primarily a project basis right now, which I personally enjoy doing more of, although, it obviously has its downsides. One of those being the project starts and then it ends, and kind of what happens next, obviously, and especially this year as work is starting to slow down a little bit, looking for ways to leverage, like you said, the past work that we've done, the great relationships that we have with clients, to either expand those relationships or better utilize them in how we start getting new clients, new relationships, or even just operationally doing a better job of figuring out what went well, what didn't on those jobs, and what we can learn from that in the future.
Got it. So ultimately, to summarize, how can you leverage your past experience with great clients to get more great clients?
Exactly.
There are a few things to consider. One, when it comes to social proof, around testimonials, case studies, and things like that, there are 3 pieces to it. There is the company you worked with, which people might or might not recognize. Hopefully, they recognize the company. There's also the person you worked with in terms of their title. For instance, were you working with the CMO? Were you working with a marketing manager? Were you working with the owner of the business? That's important because ultimately prospective clients are thinking about, is this someone like me? And then the third thing is the result you got for the client. Now, that's not always clear. It's not always clear right away. Sometimes it takes longer to figure that out. But, consider those are the main levers. The company, the brand name you work with, the person in terms of their role in the company, and then finally the results you got. Now, in the interim, in terms of results, you could have the client talk about the deliverables you did. We got a great new website, or a great annual report, or a great campaign, or things like that. Of course, not everyone is going to want to share all of that. Thinking about your particular client base so far, how much do you think people would be willing to share on the record?
A decent amount. I mostly work in development, so a lot of it is pretty. It results wise can be pretty black and white. Performance on the new site versus the old one, or how easy it is to manage. So there's a lot that's probably pretty low hanging fruit that people would be willing to talk about.
Perfect. And by the way, for everyone who's listening, this reinforces the importance of doing some sort of a baseline before you get started with a client. For instance, in the website example, running one of the various site speed checkers and then running it again, when it's launched, kind of thing. That also raises, if a client isn't willing to share, say, access to their analytics or info about revenue or things like that to give you a before and after, one, that may be a sign they're not seeing you as a true strategic partner. It also could be a sign that maybe they don't track it at all, which may be a risk around their level of sophistication. So that could be a question you could talk about in the sales process. Okay, so we've got clients, both the company and their role, and we've got the accomplishments. You can use the deliverables as an interim item. There's also a question about when to ask for that kind of stuff. As speaking coach Alan Hoffler says, the audience will never love you more than the moment you walk off the stage. That is to say, if people are happy with what you did or what you shared, now is the time to ask. And his example, that's about getting people to opt in for an email newsletter, things like that. But now is the time. And the worst that could happen. I reached out to someone who did one of my new phase 1 engagements, and it sounds like built a lot of momentum internally and things like that, and getting the team aligned. And I asked if he'd be willing to share an early stage testimonial, and he's like, "Well, let's wait a little bit longer. Let's wait a little bit longer." The worst clients can say is, "Let's wait," right? But it's worth the ask. Yeah. Now, amidst all of this, as you're leveraging past success for future growth, don't list accomplishments you don't want to do more of. For instance, when I was applying for jobs in the past, before, earlier in my career, I studied German in high school and college. I don't want to use my German skills in my work. And so I didn't list it on my resume because people would ask, right, if it was there. I talked to someone who was doing a lot of work with QuickBooks, and they had mentioned they didn't really, in an agency operations role, and they didn't really like doing QuickBooks stuff. And I'm like, take it off the resume. Like, don't tell people you can do something you don't want to do. Ideally, also, when it comes to the work you're doing, outsource it to others, either on your team or out, beyond, as soon as possible. And that's tough, right? When you're an agency owner, people are like, agency owner was amazing for such and such thing. And that's good, but the ideal testimonial is agency owner and their team were great, or maybe even better, depending on your long-term goals, agency name team was great. And as the owner, they met you in the sales process, but you weren't the person that they see as the main thing behind that. And that gets into basically transmitting your authority to the team. In the sales process, you're like, I have a team, it's amazing, they're going to take great care of you. Ideally, also say they're meeting, if you have an account manager structure, meeting the account manager during the sales process. There are clients who are like, I want a list of every single person who will be on my account, right, before they've even committed to spend money. That's not ideal, but realistically, you will know who the account manager is going to be, that you'd likely assign based on the timeline, and it makes sense for them to meet. Also, because if they have concerns about fulfilling the work for the client, you want to get that out sooner rather than later. Going to chat, by the way, Kathleen, thank you for your sharing. You mentioned in your contract, there's a built-in expectation about marketing and about marketing the brand and doing case study. And and if they aren't, then perhaps aren't willing to do that, the fee may be higher. And I agree on timing matters for the testimonial. So thank you for sharing there. John, what questions do you have from what I've shared so far?
That all makes sense as far as getting a testimonial and on the what people are willing to talk about. Certainly would love to move a little bit closer to the holy grail of actual analytics and more business driving metrics.
Yeah.
I'm curious about one thing I'm not very good at doing is expanding the relationship that I have with that individual client after the project is done.
Yes. Well, some of it is if they see you as helpful and strategic, they're probably going to share more, right? If you've built a close relationship with them, they might mention, they're looking at opening a new location, or they're considering this product line expansion, or they're doing this or that, which you can listen for as opportunities to grow things. You'd mentioned that a lot of the work you're doing is development wise, and as a project basis. Some of that is you can build in how is maintenance going to work. As a web project manager in the past, my general guideline is that clients should plan on spending at least 10% of the website's initial cost every year on maintenance and updates. And depending, sometimes they should spend a lot more than that. And then, of course, then they'll need to do a redesign in 3 to 5 years or however far out. So some of that is you can build that in from the beginning about what to expect. So that they just like, well, of course, I'm going to do a maintenance agreement. You've sold them on the importance of it. For your client base so far, are there other things that people have mentioned that give you sort of a thread to tug on? What have you seen so far?
That's a good question. Probably a little bit, and this kind of goes to the earlier point, helping with them implementing those analytics that you were talking about, especially the less sophisticated clients who either wish that they were more, or we wish that there were more.
That makes sense. So you're kind of getting the sort of wish list from them. That can be helpful. Another thing to consider, clients usually aren't keeping up about the latest technology and other related trends as much as agencies are. You could tell them about what seems to be coming up. What's new, what's going on. Even if they don't move forward with something on that right now, they see you as someone who knows what you're doing, the latest on what's going on, kind of thing. And they'll reach out to you first. I've had clients like that in the past at agencies where there was work that we couldn't do for them, but they just trusted us to know the right person. Sometimes we were able to do a project for us to get paid to help them find that new, say, development partner or things like that. Where we were PHP based, they needed a .NET system. They paid us like $30,000 to help define the work and find someone. You can also do that with recruiting services too. Clients don't always want to pay for it. I had a client as a project manager where they were like, we want to do this in-house. We need a front-end developer. We offered to help them, on a pay basis. They were like, no. So we then go into brief the guy they hired as a supposed front-end developer. And as our front-end developer was sharing something, she was going through some stuff, and their new employee said, she was talking about browser debugging tools. Not only did he not use them, he had never heard of them before, or never heard of the concept. They'll be like a graphic designer saying, Photoshop. Oh, that's really interesting. How do you spell that? Yeah. Well, John, from what I've shared, what are your next steps from here before we move over to the next question?
Probably, I think I need to start to put together an SOP on how I request those testimonials. Probably have a few recent that I've been a little bit lax on that are still probably close to that immediate window that I could and should reach out to.
That makes sense. And great suggestion from Kathleen in chat. Draft a blog post and other content highlighting the value of this. And then you can use that ultimately as sales support, because then it's not you telling them in an email, it's pointing them to an article, it's there in writing in a public way, and they tend to trust it. And Kathleen, love the point about highlighting a plan by quarter to help make it happen. Awesome.
Nice.
All right. Well, John, thank you for joining today. Good luck. Let me know how it all goes.
All right. Thank you, Karl.
Absolutely. Well, next up, we have a question from Martin. Martin, if you want to come on camera and audio, welcome to Agency Office Hours.
Great. Thank you for having this opportunity here. Thank you, Karl.
Absolutely. So the question you asked was, to paraphrase, was about positioning. Historically, being a HubSpot, being an inbound agency was enough to stand out. Now, as the market is more saturated, that's not the case. So what do you do? If you could, please elaborate a bit on where you are.
Of course, we have been the first HubSpot agency in this country 12 years ago. And it was nice sailing under the wind of HubSpot.
Yeah.
But now there are more. There are over 6,000 HubSpot agencies. But there's another thing we have to consider, is that HubSpot has changed the direction. So HubSpot is not focusing on inbound agencies. They are more focusing on integrators. So they have, so they are not anymore the marketing automation software. They are the CRM software company. And so altogether, HubSpot is not holding up this banner for inbound anymore. So I think it's time for us, and also for other HubSpot agencies, to find their own destiny, their own positioning. It's not enough, as you said. It's not enough to be positioned as a HubSpot agency. So I mean, mainly what we have learned, what we can install a marketing process. B2B, we are specialized in B2B. So basically what we can really do is, it's not just campaigns, it's not just websites. Is what we have learned is to implement a marketing process where we get leads in, qualify them, hand them over to sales. But there's so many others doing this. So many others doing this that don't have any connection to HubSpot. They have done it always. B2B marketing agencies, this is what they do. And so it's hard for us to find some speciality. What can we, what does differentiate us from these hundreds of agencies doing B2B marketing, if it's not HubSpot anymore?
Yes. Well, let's dig into that. So ultimately, around positioning and competitiveness, if being an inbound agency isn't enough to stand out, what can you do? From what you've shared, I think looking at what are other agencies doing, how are they positioning themselves, certainly gives you some ideas. And this is true, by the way, for everyone who's listening. If you tie your agency to a third-party company that you don't control as a third party, you're kind of along for the ride. Highly ranked HubSpot agencies probably will be fine, right? Because they're already showing up near the top of things. I think, Martin, to your experience about being the first in the country, 12 years experience, like that's really promising compared to, say, someone who starts a new agency tomorrow and all. They can't claim, well, we were the first and we're the oldest. But what do you do? Some of that comes down to what is the benefit of what you're doing for clients, right? If you think historically, the idea of being an inbound agency, it was a way to grow without needing an enormous sales team. without having to spend unlimited amounts of money
Yeah.
on advertising and so on. And, that is how most of my clients find me, right? They're like, Karl, I saw your article about such and such. I subscribe to your newsletter, looking for more help, and things like that. Like, it still works, but it's more congested. It's more competitive. So what do you do? But if you think about it, what are you accomplishing for your clients? Usually it's finding more leads, might be getting more customers in the door, kind of depending on the client's business. For agencies that work with law firms, it's about get more cases, right? They're trying to get cases into the firm. And so it's more, and also there's often a bit about a higher quality, right? Higher quality customers or clients in the door. One area that will help, Martin, you and for anyone who's listening stand out is around strategy advice. There that the strategy advice is going to help regardless of what platforms or technologies in their MarTech stack that clients use to implement. And so, if a client comes to you and said, I have this problem, what do I do? For instance, in my work on the new phase 1 service, one of the inquiries was around dealing with a surge in client churn. Now, there are certain technology things that the agency can do to work on that, but the solution isn't platform specific, right? It's more about what are the different business levers. And they're actually, if you could think about it in terms of strategy isn't just one thing. In my work, I've identified what we could think of as strategy tiers. And the idea here, and I'll share the link in chat, the idea there is that when you're doing strategy work for clients, at the very top is business strategy. That's, what should they be doing in their business in general? Then below that, we could think of it as integrated marketing strategy. That's like all of their marketing. That's, it's different from the business strategy because it's not their operations, it's not their internal things, it's not, how they're doing staffing and all. We've got business strategy, integrated marketing strategy. Then we have digital marketing strategy, for digitally oriented agencies. Then you've got channel strategy. What should they be doing in social media? What should they be doing in email? What should they be doing elsewhere? And then finally at the bottom, and this would be the lowest value from a client perception standpoint, is looking at the bottom around campaign strategy. That is, you've got a particular campaign. What's the strategy to get the word out? Now, the higher you are in those strategy tiers, the more you can charge because clients see it being worth more. What is sending one email? They might get some revenue from it. What is figuring out their overall business strategy? That could make them millions or billions of dollars, depending on the size of the company. And you don't have to go all the way to business strategy. There's a reason that McKinsey can charge $1 million for a consulting engagement. Various reasons, but part of it is they're at the top of the tier there. Martin, thinking about your current work, how do you typically lead with clients? Is it business strategy? Is it integrated marketing strategy? Is it digital marketing strategy? Is it more channel oriented or campaign oriented? What would you say?
Digital. Yeah.
Got it. So something to consider, do you want to move further up? Do you want to look at integrated strategy? You don't have to do that. There are downsides. That would be potentially needing to hire additional people. That would potentially require partnering with other firms. For instance, if you don't have any experience with PR, partner with a PR firm.
What about sales in this connex?
So sales, if we look at that stage business strategy, integrated marketing strategy, that could also look at sort of integrated what I think of as business development strategy, which I see as three things. Yes, it's sales, but it's also marketing, it's also partnerships. So maybe it's integrated growth strategy or integrated business development strategy. It could fit there. And that actually is a good opportunity. You mentioned a B2B focus. B2B clients are going to have sales people or sales teams, and they're not always competent. I mean, if you think about how hard it is at agencies to find competent, trustworthy salespeople, they are, if not a unicorn, they're maybe a narwhal, you know, or something like that. They exist, but can be a challenge to find, kind of thing. So that could be a good growth opportunity where, I mean, speaking of HubSpot, I was at the spoke at the HubSpot inbound conference several times. At the first one in 2015, someone asked me at the agency reception, we've been delivering all these leads. They focused on health and fitness centers, gyms, and so on. And they're like, we gave this client hundreds of leads, but they couldn't close any of them because their sales team wasn't following up or they weren't competent. That is an opportunity around sales enablement or even sales coaching. Martin, thinking about your clients, does that seem like a potential opportunity to explore?
Of course, because we have the same experience. As I said, we're helping them to get leads, but then at the end of the day, they don't get revenue out of the leads.
Yes. So I would explore that. The other angle to consider beyond what are the results you're getting for clients is, of course, the idea of an industry vertical. Pick their industry or maybe a few. I did work with a client where, as part of the intake process, I asked about their, clients and this and that, and they said, "Oh, we're focusing on these," and they listed like 11 different things. I was counting with my fingers as I looked at the printout, and I ran out of fingers. That's not a focus if it's 11 different things, but maybe there's one or two. One thing you can do if you want to explore that, and we've shared in chat my article about vertical positioning, vertical specialization. You don't have to go all in on a new vertical right away. You can put up a landing page on your site, and ideally it's one that you've worked with before. Maybe it hasn't been your focus, but you have worked with them, kind of thing. And you talk about the work you've done with them, use language that's going to resonate with them. And then decide what kind of outreach will you do to get in front of people. That'll let you test things before you go all in. But it is smart to be thinking about this, sooner rather than later. And this is a complicated topic. We're not going to be able to fix everything today. But Martin, from what we've discussed, what stands out as your next steps from here?
No, for me, it looks like really I should not go in a special vertical, but more in a specialty, helping clients to get more out of their leads with sales, sales training, sales enablement. I saw a question in the chat. If you need a background in sales, I don't think so. I mean, I have experience in sales because for my company, I'm the sales guy. But I think we don't have to cover all the sales aspect. It's more, for example, how can sales use content?
Yes.
This is our skill, is to provide content. Why not providing content to sales so they can use content to close faster? Things like this. So it's more how can good marketing support sales?
Yes, which, by the way, from a marketing perspective, I believe that, I mean, I love marketing. I focus on helping marketing agencies and related firms, marketing, creative, design, development, and so on. Marketing is ultimately subordinate to sales. Like if you're not selling, marketing doesn't help, right? The marketing is to get the leads in, or if it's business to consumer, it's to make the sales happen. So, yeah. Well, Martin, thank you very much. Let me know how things go.
Thank you for developing this idea for me. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, some great comments in chat. Jacob, thank you for sharing. Kathleen, looking at ways to integrate things. That's a great point, where clients often have their own silos. Things aren't tied together. So good stuff. All right. Well, coming up, we'll take a look at pivoting your services and some of the implications from that. And then we'll look finally at work-life balance, helping you find ways to work less and earn more. But first, a word from our sponsor, Sakas and Company. Hi, Karl Sakas here. You know, running an agency is stressful. You're carrying a lot on your shoulders. Client mentioned they were grinding their teeth at night. More than one client has mentioned that. That is a stressful situation. You know, it helps to know what to do next. There's really an unlimited number of things you could do next. It helps to think about what to prioritize. Not what to do, it's what to do right now. And, you know, what if there were a way to help you prioritize? Well, there is. It's my new phase 1 service. In the phase 1 service, I do a deep analysis of your agency, reviewing where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go, and ultimately make recommendations, quick wins, things you can implement quickly to get results now, long-term strategic priorities about things to do toward your long-term goals, whether that's building a sustainable lifestyle agency or going to a future exit or having the option of doing both. And then also we'll validate your existing plans. You know, for instance, if you're thinking of doing something, either confirming if it makes sense or not, and often sharing tips to make it better. And you get the results, the advice so far in about a month or so for you and your leadership team. And then we'll do Q&A about implementing it. It's self-contained. I call it a phase 1. It really needs a better name, but it's like a phase 1 of a much larger engagement, but you don't have to commit to anything. It's about 1/3 of the budget of doing a larger project. But again, you just get the initial info. Of the first ones that I've done so far, this is a new way of packaging my experience with 400 plus agencies in 36 countries over the past more than a decade. People have identified that they have anywhere from 2 to 6 months of stuff to work on, prioritized, and that they and their team will work on. So, you know, if you're looking for direction, I'm not a medical professional, so if you are grinding your teeth, you should talk to an appropriate medical professional. But if you're looking to reduce your stress, and it would help to know where exactly to focus and how to get things done as smoothly and quickly and profitably as possible, you might be interested in the phase 1. If you'd like to explore that further, go to my contact page at sakasandcompany.com. Go ahead and type in the contact form, tell me about phase 1, and my team and I will follow up and we can help. So good luck. All right, our next question is from Zach about pivoting services. Zach, if you want to unmute and come on screen, welcome to Agency Office Hours.
Thank you very much.
So to paraphrase, you mentioned that you're adding new services. When we're changing to new services, how do we balance growth in the new client work with handling our legacy clients? If you could, please elaborate a bit, and then we'll answer.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me on here, Karl. I appreciate it. Our agency is in its 6th year now. It's me and my partner, 4 full-time people, and a handful of contractors. And we're kind of finding that the more we grow, the more sense it makes for us to narrow our specialty, so we can kind of have that, well, whatever. But we're just finding that we're a content marketing agency. That's what we've been since the beginning. And we are finding that websites and branding actually are probably a better fit for us. It make a lot more sense with where we're going after. We work in the financial industry with financial advisors and fintech. And so we've sort of been just dipping our toes in that pool for a while now and finding, yes, there's definitely interest here. We want to go this direction more and more. But like I said, it's me and my partner. My partner handles bizdev. I handle oversight of content creation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I review contracts as he presents them. But as we're going through them together, we're kind of butting heads. I mean, we have a really great relationship. It's not a matter of, you know, he's doing it wrong and I'm doing it right. But it's been difficult to get on the same page of, okay, when are we going to flip the switch? because I'm just like, okay, well, we talked about this. This is what we want. Let's do it right now. And he's like, well, but we also have to pay our bills, which I get, makes total sense.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to know when to make that jump and how to do it right.
Hmm. Well, that sounds like a good phase one topic, but let's do the free advice first. So
Okay.
to paraphrase, you focus on a particular industry, you have a lot of experience in that industry, you've been providing a particular service, content marketing, and you've realized that there are some new services, as you mentioned, websites and branding, that your target market, financial services, would benefit from. The question is how to go about approaching that in terms of, well, just about everything. You know, it sounds like sales and scoping, delivery of the work, and things like that. Did I capture that accurately?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. One other thing, definitely talk to John from his earlier segment with his web development experience. Sounds like may make sense to hire him in some capacity as but when it comes to websites and branding, how would you describe your current experience with those? Like, is your full-time team fulfilling that work? Have you been outsourcing it? Kind of where are you on that now?
So we're fully outsourcing all of the dev stuff.
Okay.
Design we're doing in-house.
Got it. One thing to consider, and this is true for everyone listening, there's a question of how do you decide between hiring a contractor versus an employee? And one of the key drivers for that is if something is going to be a strategic area of growth for the agency, it probably makes sense to have employees doing the work. Part of that is it keeps the institutional knowledge more closely in-house. And also you're going to be paying roughly half per hour what you would pay an outside contractor, right? You know, if you've got an employee, maybe you're paying them $100,000 a year, they're getting the equivalent of $50 an hour. You would probably pay $100 an hour for a contractor with their particular skill set. You know, it varies by role and things like that. Now, hiring a contractor makes sense when you're doing, say, 15 hours a week of a particular type of work, right? Because, you know, you don't need a full-time person. But, you know, if it's 10, 15, sure. On the other hand, if it starts getting into 20 or more hours per week, well, you'd pay the same per year, or maybe even less, to a full-time employee. It also helps from an IRS perspective, right? If someone's working 40 hours a week, they shouldn't be a contractor, and you know that can create some classification issues, kind of thing. So I would keep an eye on that. Do you need someone full-time? Or even on the web development example, you know, there are options to outsource the work, but you do need someone internally at the agency, whether it's a project manager or a, you know, director of development or something like that, who's overseeing it. You know, I see a lot of agencies that have really strong overseas development partners. The development partner they work with, who's great, often was like the third or fourth or fifth or seventh development partner they worked with. It's important to have someone internally who can competently evaluate, are they doing a good job? If they say there's a problem, is it really a problem, or are they just making it up, kind of thing? So who currently at the agency is overseeing the development work?
I would say it's me.
Okay.
Yeah, ultimately.
And you don't have to answer this out loud, but you might want to think about, do you like overseeing that? If the answer is no, then you know you probably need someone else to do it who could report to you, kind of thing. That could be a web project manager, it could be someone else, kind of thing, so that things escalate to you when they need to, but you're not getting pulled into every single crisis. So you can be more of the fire marshal rather than the firefighter. So, you know, thinking about this, I know there's that question about how to handle your legacy clients. Do you foresee, as part of your growth path, clients that you mentioned, financial services, financial advisors, and so on, are they likely to need all three of those services: content, website, and branding?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple who have fit that, you know, where we do the website and branding and then it turns into an ongoing retainer. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, kind of our dream situation. It's just the retainers that we're doing right now. We have a collection of a bunch of what you would call C or D level clients, probably. And we would rather work with, you know, 4 or 5 retainers rather than 12 to 15 retainers.
Yeah.
This is-
Yeah. And do keep in mind, by the way, if you were solely retainer, you know, ideally you have the neighborhood of 10 to 20. If it gets above 25, you then have a client, kind of a client dilution problem. And then if it's like, you know, 3 or, you know, below 10, I realize you've got the project work too, that can
Yeah.
lead to a client concentration problem. But, you know, ultimately, I think the thing that you and your partner might want to discuss is, what would it take to feel confident about strategically churning some of those smaller clients that aren't a fit? For instance, if you land a new thing, I don't know the exact numbers you're charging, but for instance, say you've got, you know, $3,000 a month old clients that, you know, you would charge far more now. Let's say you sign a new one for 10,000. Great, get rid of those old, the 3 legacy ones, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And you'll need to decide what the right break point is. And you may have some clients that you keep working with that you really like, and you know, and you can keep working with them. That's okay. But for everyone else, it's ultimately laying out, you know, hey, our new focus is this. We're glad to keep working with you through the end of your retainer, which ends in 3 months or what have you. But going forward, you know, new clients are now, you're paying this, new clients are paying this. We'd be willing to work with you for this, like, you know, give them some sort of a deal in terms of their minimum level of engagement. You know, but if that's not a match, I understand, you know, and we can point you to other firms, something like that. So you've given them notice, but you get to decide who gets notice versus others. You might say, hey, you know, you're at this, new clients are at this, we're willing to keep you at this for this period of time, but I can't guarantee it, you know, forever. What's your reaction to all of this so far?
No, I mean, that's solid. And we, you know, we've kind of kicked around these ideas a little bit, some of what you're saying, and of course, some of it's new as well. But yeah, it's having the actual boots on the ground way of approaching it that has been difficult for us.
Something to try as you're working through next steps would be around using either my client ranking matrix, and we've linked to that as a free link in chat. Basically, where you load all of your clients and you look at their current value, high, medium, low, and their future potential, high, medium, and low. And that can help you decide, you know, if you've got a client that is low current value and low future potential, they're probably not one you're going to work to save. On the other hand, maybe they're, you know, medium current value, but you know that they have some expansion plans that you could help them with. Maybe they're going to go from medium currently, but in the future they're higher value, higher potential. You know, that might be one to invest in, and things like that. It can help, and the spreadsheet is set up to be color coded, so you can act like through conditional formatting. And once you see that, I think you're going to see some new takeaways about what to do, either to grow or to maintain or to plan to strategically churn.
That's great. Yeah, I'll get that. I see that. I remember fooling around with that a couple of years ago, and I need to bring that back up. Do something with it.
Here's repeating. You know, I recommend doing it once a year or so, you know, as client bases change and things like that. So yeah, let me know how it goes, and good luck as you work through things.
Do. Thanks so much, Karl. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zach. All right. Our final question today will be from Stephen. Stephen, if you want to unmute yourself, come on video. Welcome to Agency Office Hours.
Hey, thanks for including me in the show today.
Absolutely. So to paraphrase, here's the question you'd asked. it's really about work-life balance. You mentioned that you were offering one-on-one services, in your case, coaching, in addition to running the business in general. And we talk about in my book around work less, earn more, where the goal is to, well, work less and earn more. How do you do that when you're providing one-on-one services to clients? So if you could, please elaborate a bit, and then we'll dig in.
Okay, you froze up a little bit there, so I missed what you said the last 15 seconds there.
Oh, okay. So if you could elaborate on your situation, and then we'll dig in.
Okay, very, very good. My wife and I started a marketing communications company about 25, 26 years ago, and we ran that for many years, and we sold it in the middle of 2020 to a strategic acquirer.
Yes.
And so we're continuing to do some work for that company. We help them through the integration process, and so we continue to do some work for them. Her in design, and myself as a fractional executive, doing some strategy work and things of that nature. But at the same time, we're trying to build another agency, smaller agency with a different scope, I guess you would say, a different client base. We really have a passion for working with small businesses,
Yes.
and especially folks who were where we were a few years ago, and getting ready to make the business more valuable, to make the business where, just like your book says, where we could work less and earn more. And
Yeah.
a lot of the principles that you lay out here, we applied over the years and put us in a good position for an exit. And we want to help. We want to help small businesses do that. And we're working with our Chamber of Commerce locally. We're also involved in tourism and working with our tourism organization. So a lot more community based than some of the things that we were doing with our other agency. But along with that and growing that book of business, I think that our one of the offerings that we really need to pursue is helping businesses one-on-one, because I know that is, and I know you do a lot of that too. And I think that's a model that, looking back at myself, 5 or 6 years ago,
Right.
that would have been a very valuable service to have someone who had walked that path that I had walked,
Yes.
and to help them on a one-on-one basis. So I guess this balancing that was my question, to get some of your insight on how we would go from how do we do that simultaneously, building a one-on-one coaching business within the agency that's
Yep.
also working, with clients.
Got it. So how to build the one-on-one and build the agency at the same time. Given that is my business, that it's a challenge. It's a challenge. It helps to have a really good team. So my two current employees are on the call today, Diane and Kate. They are amazing, as I tell them and tell others. And then, of course, have different freelancers helping out in various ways. Some for basically as long as I've been in business. Like a few hours a month, kind of thing. So having a great team is really helpful. One of the things you might look at is around the 6 agency roles. And I talk about that in the Work Less, Earn More book, but summarize them here. Key thing is, as you think about these, are there aspects of this that you might want to delegate to someone else? So the 6 agency roles are account management, project management, subject matter expert work, kind of the designers, developers, writers doing the craft. You've got client strategy, bizdev, which is technically marketing, sales, and partnerships. And then you've got support, which is operations and leadership. So this might be a case where you continue as the client strategist, but when it comes to some of the more day-to-day implementation, someone else on the team does that. So you're identifying the strategy, and then someone else makes it happen. The same thing could be true on project management. If you want, you could also delegate account management. It's a bit harder to delegate, as you mentioned, as you're growing in the new business. You probably aren't going to outsource the sales part of BizDev. You're probably not going to outsource the partnerships side of BizDev. you might be able to get your team's help on some of the ongoing marketing. At Sakas and Company, almost everyone is touching marketing in some way.
Right.
But I'm ultimately still responsible for it happening. And that's not unusual. In the research I'm doing right now with DataBox about how agencies market themselves, what are the secrets of top performing agencies? Even at larger agencies, the owner is still often the CMO, right? So like that's not going to go away completely, but you could get their help on other pieces. So, thinking about those roles, what do you love doing and that you would want to keep doing? But then are there aspects where others could help with, say, is it do the client strategy work, which would include doing coaching for clients, but maybe someone else leads the onboarding process. So like Kate, for instance, on my team leads the onboarding process in terms of getting everything set up, tracking down, getting the discovery documents back and things like that, so that I can focus on giving great advice, but I'm also not tracking down, they haven't filled out the team census yet, or they filled out this, but this is blank. Is it because, are they done, or, or what? So, Stephen, what's your reaction about what do you definitely want to do versus what are some things where you might be able to bring others in to help? What do you think so far?
Yeah, the details are definitely where things fall apart for me. I'm a high level, visionary strategy thinker, and
Yes.
yeah, getting into the weeds of ensuring that these day-to-day things happen that might feel like minutia, but they're absolutely critical to making the agency run.
Yes.
Those are where things come off the track for me. So keeping me in the higher level, especially with the strategy, and the leadership there, and certainly the biz dev and developing those relationships. That's definitely where I need to keep myself focused.
You're in sort of an interesting spot where you built and sold the first agency, and now you're building a new one, right? So you get to think what to keep the same, what to do differently, and things like that. For a lot of people in your situation, it may make sense to explore bringing in a virtual assistant, a VA, to provide the administrative support. And at the current size, they likely would be doing some degree of client-facing work. For instance, one of the titles I had for a past VA was client coordinator. Most of the work wasn't fully client-facing, but the client wants to hear from the client coordinator, not the marketing coordinator, the sales coordinator, it depends on what they're doing, but kind of thing. So that might be something to explore. And certainly, we can share some of the articles on, related to virtual assistants and things like that. We'll follow up with that about VAs, EAs. I've got a few of those on my website.
Mhm.
How are things now in terms of administrative support?
Well, we're handling it with, of course, my wife's involved in the agency, and then we do have one contractor who is helping to some degree with what you're talking about, not to the level that we need, and certainly not to the level that I'm accustomed to.
Right.
The agency I sold, I had an EA that, she was my right arm and helped me be much more efficient. And I'm looking forward to getting to the stage where I can bring that role back on again for sure.
Got it. That makes sense. And I just shared in chat, as you're thinking about this, EA expectations,
Mhm.
is that, as business owners, we have expectations, but you know what? The EA should have expectations for us as well, right? It kind of goes both ways. And I shared another article about delegating to a VA.
Mhm.
I guess the question becomes, and you don't have to answer all of this out loud, but consider the opportunity cost. If you could bill clients, X dollars an hour, or that is the equivalent if you're billing on a retainer basis, and you could get the administrative help for 1/10 of what you're charging your own time, probably makes sense. Like I've had a VA since within the first year of, or someone in that type role since the first year of running what's now Sakas and Company. So it's now, over a decade. Take a look at the numbers. But if getting that person on board will enable you to do the things that you do best, it may be worth the leap. Maybe sooner than you initially might have expected.
Mm-hmm. Yep, good advice.
So what is on your to-do list coming out of this call? What do you have coming up? What are you going to work on next?
Well, I'm going to walk back through your book. The summaries at the end of each chapter are very, very helpful. Been listening to the audio of that too, and appreciate all the great content you put out in the world.
Virgin, awesome. That just came out.
And so, yes, I need to be looking at, as far as the balance goes, that we're talking about here, taking those steps that are determining what being very intentional about determining what's next in terms of growing the client side that is more general in terms of, helping the organizations that we're working with,
Yes.
while also growing the one-on-one coaching, and take those in. I think if I put too much emphasis on one or the other, I'm going to have trouble with that balance as I move forward.
And that's a good point, but the balance is going to shift over time. I mean, in a sense, you're running two different businesses, and that's a challenge. But you're thinking about the right things, and the roles should help. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining today, and good luck as you're working through things. Let me know how it goes.
Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time today. That is agency office hours for October 2023, or whenever you're watching the video. If you're watching live, you'll get the recording within 24 hours. We're meeting every second Tuesday of the month. You can book now for the rest of 2023 for November and December, and you can also book ahead for 2024. Whether you have questions that you want to ask, include those when you sign up. We'll let you know beforehand if you're on the question list, or if you just want to listen in and hear what people are talking about, would love to have you join either way. So good luck as everyone is wrapping up this year, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.